Hi, I'm Michoel Shapiro, and I'm the founder of Krav Combat Academy. I want to address these attacks that are going on in Brooklyn. Again, there was another one this week in Crown Heights. In a previous video, I explained some very practical tips and strategies for avoiding violence, identifying violence, and what to do as you see it unfolding, how to prevent it from happening to you. One of the key elements that I talked about there was being proactive, never reactive, always being the one going first, meaning you take action before the attacker. And one of the ways to do that is to present yourself as someone who is a hard target. That means someone who is aware of their environment and someone who is confident. The way you walk down the street, when you show confidence, it means that you have a mental attitude that you will protect yourself. You are worth protecting yourself. Now, I've gotten comments by people saying that if I were to see a problem brewing, someone coming my way that I got a sense that there was a problem, or let's say the attack was beginning to unfold, I would be paralyzed by fear. I would be unable to react because I am so full of emotion in that moment. So I want to address the mental aspect of dealing with violence because it is perhaps the most critical one. Of course, practical strategies and tips is essential, but being able to be mentally there and being able to address violence on a mental level is going to be critical and a foundation of any martial arts or self-defense system. So, let's address that. The first thing that you need to recognize is that if you are faced with a threat, your body is going to naturally react with what's called the flight or fight response. And that means that your body is going to prepare itself to either fight and ward off this violent attack or run from it. Now, the body dumps a hormone called adrenaline into your system, which makes your muscles stronger and faster than they've ever been before. It increases your heart rate and it constricts your blood vessels so that way more oxygen is being taken in and transferred to the parts of your body that are needed to be most efficient to fight or to run. Some of the effects of adrenaline will look like fear. So for example, because the blood vessels are beginning to constrict, the skin begins to look pale. The capillaries on the surface of the skin are now constricting, which forces blood away from the surface of your body and forces that blood towards the internal organs. Again, the heart, the lungs, the large muscle groups, because the blood is needed, the oxygen and the nutrients is more needed for these systems in order for you to prevail in this situation. You will begin to feel butterflies in your stomach because the digestive system is not necessary right now when you are facing a violent threat. You need to oxygenate and give nutrients to, again, the big muscle groups, the heart, the lungs. This is what's going to win the day. So your body is a very efficient machine and it will know where to send these resources and it does it through the act of adrenaline. You will begin to you may feel like you need to relieve yourself because your excretory system is not that needed right now. Again, the pressing issue is dealing with the threat. So your body is going to, again, move the resources more towards the other systems that will be needed for dealing with the threat. You may interpret these reactions of your body as being weak. You're fearful, you're a weakling. But that's the farthest thing from the truth. Really, your body is being the most efficient it can be. It is preparing itself for violence. It's like you are becoming a warrior. Your body just spontaneously is doing that. It's like your alter ego, your superhero is beginning to come out. And if you recognize what that is, for what it is, it's really empowering. You realize that I am prepared now to deal with whatever's going on. And these little side effects should not be misinterpreted as weakness. On the contrary, it's strength. So number one is that if you notice, if you identify problems unfolding and you feel the symptoms of adrenaline, realize what it is. You are now better prepared to deal with what's going on, which will help you have confidence to face this encounter. You recognize what is really going on. Number two is that as you feel these different things going on in your body and you may emotionally feel some sort of fear, you need to then address the emotion of fear, which is by creating within yourself a sensation of anger, of a righteous indignation. Because it's very difficult to have fear and anger at the same time. If someone's threatening you, you must conjure within yourself that feeling of, how dare you? Don't come near me. I will take care of business. I will take your face off if you come near me. You are creating within yourself that mental state that you are ready to match his violence with even more violence. If you project that way, that alone might deter the bad guy. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're walking down the street, ready for a fight and looking like you're ready to start up with someone. No, outwardly you should be calm and confident. But to maintain the confident presentation, inwardly you need to be ready to fight for what's worth fighting for. And you are worth fighting for. That righteous indignation, which says, how dare you threaten me in any shape or form, let alone my life, and perhaps threaten me with grave bodily harm, which could mean crippling injury or sexual assault. I will fight tooth and nail because I'm worth protecting. Now, when we talk about being worth protecting, we have to realize that our sense of self-worth, in terms of me being worth something, is just scratching the surface. Your loved ones, the people in your life, are affected by the things that happen to you. What would, God forbid, happen to your wife, to your husband, to your children, to your other family members and friends, if, God forbid, you wound up in a hospital and never made it out? Or if, God forbid, you were in the hospital, but now you don't talk right anymore, you don't walk right anymore, you don't look right anymore. How would it affect them? Your sense of self-worth is built not just on a sense of ego, it's also beyond the ego. There's a story someone shared with me to illustrate this point about a woman who was brutally attacked in her apartment in the worst possible way by a home invader. And when this guy was done, he crossed the hallway to her 8-year-old's bedroom. And this woman, despite what she just endured, she got up, she picked up a pair of metal scissors and drove these scissors through the guy's neck and rescued her 8-year-old. So can you imagine this woman, she went through whatever she went through, but that didn't stop her. She was determined to protect her child because her child was worth protecting. How dare you? How dare you even threaten my child? If we can conjure that warrior within us, it will displace fear. So number one, we want to accept our body's natural physical response to a threat and recognize what it is. It's not weakness. It is a strength. It is efficiency. It is the body's preparation response to take care of business. And that may mean running. That may be the best way to take care of business, which essentially means getting home safe. But if it requires a fight, the body is prepared. So number one, accepting the natural response of the body as a state of preparation. And number two is displacing fear with anger, with roiges, as they may say. So it's a righteous indignation. It's not an anger that's uncontrolled, where you see nothing but a pink mist and just destroy everything like a bull in a china closet. It is a very calculated and cultivated sense of moral strength that will banish fear. And that sense of self-worth is the platform on which it's built. So you must be ready to conjure that warrior and say to yourself, if they brought 2 people, they should have brought 10 people, because I will take them all out. If that person is bigger and tougher than me, it doesn't matter. I'll cut his head off, shove it down his neck. I will end his bloodline because he came to me to try to take something from me. I will take everything from him and I will go home safe. Now, I'm talking about a scenario where, let's say on a violence scale, say from 1 to 10, you're dealing with a 10. If you had to dial it down to a 6, that's fine, because maybe you're dealing with a 6. But understand that you need to be ready to go to whatever level that person's at in terms of violence and leapfrog past that person. So if he's at a 10, you're going straight to 15. Inwardly, you are ready to do what must be done. This is not to negate the importance of learning correct techniques or strategies, meaning in a physical sense, to take care of business. But unless you have the mental attitude and the platform, the emotional platform to use your techniques and strategies, you will freeze in the street. You will be unable to emotionally deal with what's coming in, and therefore physically you'll be unable to deal with what's coming in. Again, going back to what I said originally, if you can walk down the street with a confidence, you will be less likely to be selected in the first place. And that confidence is based on an I can do it attitude, and I will do it attitude. I am determined to do it attitude. Now, developing this kind of a thing, this sense of the warrior coming out it needs to be trained. It's something that many of us have naturally to some degree, but it can be accentuated, it can be strengthened and cultivated. And in a proper training environment, if you're training martial arts or self-defense, it should be incorporated into your physical techniques. So if you are being taught to do a particular strike against, let's say, a pad, you want to begin, before you do any movement, you want to begin with mental imagery. You want to imagine a scenario where you are faced with true violence, or your loved one is being faced with true violence, and you will stop that person. Excuse me for spitting, but you see the emotion coming out. You are going to stop that person with everything that you have, because mentally you are there right now, and you are not going to let that emotional, your blood should be pumping if you're really thinking of a situation that would put you in here's an example. You're laying in bed and suddenly you wake up and your spouse is knocked out on the floor unconscious. There's a stranger on top of you and he's wrestling with you, as trying to knock you out too, while you hear down the hallway your 12-year-old daughter is being dragged out the door by his accomplice and she's screaming for help. Could you not bite the nose off this guy's face to get him off you, to get to her and rescue her? Of course you could. That type of scenario building in your head, thinking of a worst case scenario where I would be motivated to cross any line, to do whatever needs to be done in order to take care of business, that's where you should be mentally, and then train against the pad as you do your techniques in order to channel that emotional energy through your physical action. And the more you do that, the more you will program your brain to think like that. That if you are faced with a 10 on the violence scale, you will leapfrog past it to 15 or 20. And you will deliver that type of violence back and overwhelm your quote-unquote attacker. What's interesting, I use the word attacker, I go quote-unquote. When we train in class, I never use the word attacker. I don't ever label the bad guy as someone who has an advantage. I don't label the person defending as the defender or the victim. Go ahead, victim, now do such and such. That's wrong. This person is dealing with a threat. That's all it is. It's nothing more than a threat. It's something that will be taken away. You will clinically remove the threat in class through your technique and through your attitude. And you are the hero. You are the person who will deal with this. And you need to cultivate that way of thinking in your training. So I recommend looking for training that has that kind of mental attitude. And if you are training and you haven't yet incorporated that, think about these ideas and how you might incorporate it. Again, if you have any questions, I welcome questions and comments or other information that people like to share that I may not have. Like I said earlier in my other video, I am always a student. I welcome any information. Please email me at fightingrabbi@gmail.com, and please visit my website at kravcombatacademy.com. Thank you.